Okay, brilliant. So thank you very much for logging in this evening to 6 Steps to Financial Freedom. As we talked about on Facebook, I just found it amazing that when out of 10,600 attendees at UPW, when Joseph asked us whether we'd got a financial plan for our future, I think something like 10 hands went up, which, given the topic of Tony's last books, absolutely amazed me, because actually, here's a question. Raise your hand if you've read either Unshakable or Money Master the Game. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 3 or 4 people. Brilliant. Because these books, by the way, are very, very good. They are. I will talk about them some more later on. They're very, very good, but they are very US orientated. And there are certain principles that work brilliantly in the US and apply less to around the world. But they are very, very good books that teach you a lot of brilliant principles around money. So I would really encourage you to read them. But when applied to the UK, some of the concepts don't work as well as they could. So maybe at the moment if you are without a financial plan, maybe at the moment you're wondering whether in the future you're going to run out of money. Are you on track to be poor later on in life, as and when you stop working? And maybe it's the opposite of that. Maybe you're making lots of money, but you're worried that you're going to die the richest man or richest person in the graveyard because you haven't done all of the things that were really important to you when you were fit and able to. And perhaps you're worried that you're making a good level of you've got a good level of savings and you've put money aside, you've been very frugal, but actually, is that money being eroded by paying too high charges, not getting much growth, and paying too much tax? So that is a common concern of a lot of people, that really, is my money working as hard for me as it could be? Are my savings and investments being eaten into by the tax man? Sorry, I just picked up another question. The titles of those books again were Money Master the Game and also Unshakable. So yeah, perhaps you're concerned about the fact that the money that you've put aside really isn't doing as much for you as it could do. And perhaps also you're concerned that actually you're making a decent level of income, but you're not really making the most of that money. That money is kind of being frittered away and you're not really putting aside enough to create a secure financial future. Well, I'd like you to imagine a time where you've got complete financial freedom. Imagine a time where you've got all the money and assets that you need to be financially secure for the rest of your life. So money is now no object. You can do what you want, live where you want, and live how you want. And also a time where you can travel the world and see the things that are important to you when you want to do it, when you're fit and healthy enough, and when you've got the relationships with the people that you love around you. You really want to be able to maximize that and not have to worry about the finances. And actually the relationships are an important part of that, because you really want to spend, imagine a time where you're spending all of that time with the people that you love around you, doing amazing experiences. And whatever that experience is for you, money ultimately is going to drive a lot of what those experiences look like. So if where we are at the moment is not really making enough money, and where we want to be is this time of financial freedom, where we've got all the money to do all of the amazing things that we love, would you agree that we need a new strategy to be able to get there? Well, that's why I'm here to talk to you a little bit this evening about financial planning. And why financial planning? Why is that so important? Well, the reason that Tony talks about it so much in his last 2 books is because people are being ripped off by an industry that says it's out to help you save for your financial future, but so regularly delivers so little. We've been trying to get our clients away from the big life insurance companies for many, many years because we think that they're genuinely being ripped off with they're being promised the earth by these companies, and more often than not, it falls very far short of that. And financial planning is a hugely important process because ultimately it delivers what you're going to be entitled to in the future, which is hopefully the ability to retire. Now, whether you want to retire or not is a different story. I dare say we've got some passionate entrepreneurs amongst us this evening. But whether you want to retire or not, ultimately is not necessarily the important factor. It's having the choice as to whether you work or not that is the key. And financial planning is the way that you achieve that, because that's what delivers financial freedom in the future. And not only is the big life insurance companies letting people down, I'm a big believer that the advice within our industry has let people down. We commission so many of the problems within the financial advice world have been caused by commission-hungry salesmen and commission-driven problems. It's one of the reasons why at Efficient Portfolio we gave up accepting commissions back in 2006, so some 11 years ago, because we felt that it was one of the key problems that was causing the faults of our industry. But the number one skill of people that retire successfully is that not only do they manage their money well, but it's also they take a proactive approach to how they spend their time and their well-being, which is why this stuff ties in so well with what Tony's talking about. It's why his last two books have been 90% about money and 10% about the time and well-being. In fact, if you haven't read Unshakable, which most of you haven't, I'd strongly recommend it. But he talks a little bit about something that he touched on day one of UPW, which is all about the science of achievement and the science of fulfillment. If you remember, he talked a lot about Robin Williams at that stage. He talks about that in Unshakable quite a bit as well in one particular chapter. But all the other chapters are about financial planning in one form or another. So it's a hugely important subject. But why is now a good time to talk about it? Well, of course, there's never been a better time. You can't go back in time and put more money aside than you did already, and you can't. There's no better time to start than now. But there's also never been a more important time to start than now. We live in a world where interest rates have been at an all-time low for nearly 10 years now. And inflation is running higher than that. And I'll talk more about this later on, but that basically means your money is being eroded unless you're doing something active with it. So it's never been a more important time. We've never had a longer period of low interest rates and high inflation than we've had in the last 9 years. Certainly not in any of our memories anyway. But there's never been a better time to do this. We live in a world now where technology can help us in so many ways. I'm guessing that everybody on this call would have a smartphone. Well, nowadays our clients can view all of their financial planning from their smartphone, but it's using tools that can really help people understand what their financial future looks like, that can make financial planning so much more powerful than it's ever been before. So there really has never been a better time. But of course, this financial planning doesn't just affect you, because it affects the people around you that you love. The people that are most dear to you get massively impacted by whether you do financial planning or not. And I just want you to visualize for a minute that you've left this earth and you're looking down on the people that you love most, and they're opening the box that contains all of your financial information. I'm sure you know the box I mean. I'm hoping that you guys don't have a box. I'm hoping it's a really nice organized filing system or something, but I've seen many a times that it is a box. So I want you to imagine that you're looking down on your loved ones opening that box. Now, did you leave them a legacy or did you leave them a liability? So this stuff really impacts lots of people, not just you. But you may be asking, who is Charlie Redding? Why should I be listening to you about financial planning? So if it's okay with you, I'd like to take a few minutes just to tell you a little bit more about where I've come from and why this stuff is important to me. Have you ever had a time where you really felt that you loved something, but also you're being let down by it? Well, come back with me to a Friday afternoon in the spring of the year 2000, and I'm in Russell Square House in central London, which is this building you can see here. And I was in a big open plan office with little other than desks and a telephone on them. And all I can describe it is like a scene from The Wolf of Wall Street. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, but it's all pinstripe suits, it's white shirts, it's selling, and it's this crazy sales atmosphere. And in amongst all of that is sat a farmer's son. And this farmer's son is looking up at the sales manager, the guy called Bigsy, because Friday afternoon means sales meeting. And Bigsy is this big sort of Ron Atkinson style lookalike, so overweight, balding, pinstripe suit, white shirt. And Bigsy was saying, I want you to sell more. Next week, I want you on your feet and on the phone between the hours of 11 and 1 every day. I don't care whether you're selling to your granny, your mum, or a complete stranger. I want you on the phone selling more next week. Because otherwise, one of you's out of here. And of course, that farmer's son sat in amongst that scene of craziness was me. And I turned to Matt, who I worked with at the time. Now, Matt was this really trendy guy. He always followed the latest David Beckham trends. And a tall guy. And I said to Matt, look, who the hell does Bigsy think he is? I've really enjoyed giving financial advice for 8, 9 months now. I've really enjoyed helping people save for their future, protect their family, get their money working that bit harder for them. But why is it all we ever hear about is Bigsy's targets and us having to sell more and more and more to anybody that we can drag in through the door? Surely there's got to be a better way of doing this. And Matt said back to me, Charlie, I agree. This is all wrong. And 4 years later, I was with Matt again, and we were now in the Chucker Bar of the Langham Hilton in central London. And the Chucker Bar is this very nice colonial smoky bar. It's got polo sticks and helmets on the walls. And I said to Matt, look, it's 4 years ago since we were with Bigsy. We left Bigsy, and okay, we've been through 2 of the largest firms of independent financial advisors in the country. And okay, so now we're giving independent advice rather than selling one company's products. But really, has anything changed? Aren't we still just selling one company's products? And Matt said back to me at the time, and I remember it vividly, Charlie, I agree, man. I'm out of this industry. I'm quitting. I've been reading this crazy book. It's called Awaken the Giant Within by a guy called Tony Robbins. And it's just made me reevaluate everything. I'm quitting financial services. So, well, this is great. I found an industry and a job I love, but I found an industry I hate. And my best mate, the guy that's been through thick and thin with me on this journey, is leaving. How fantastic's that? So I was really struggling and I didn't know what to do. So I want to now take you to a Sunday evening in May 2011. And I'm in the Excel Arena and it's dark and I'm surrounded by 6,000 people. You might know where I'm going with this. But there's screaming, there's yelling, there's crying. And of course, if you've worked it out, yes, back in 2011, I was at UPW for the first time. Tony Robbins, my first live experience with Tony Robbins, having read Awaken the Giant Within all those years before when Matt gave me the book. And Obviously, you now know that that UPW is most famous for the firewalk. But actually, it wasn't the firewalk that really did things for me that weekend. It was the Dickens process, which there on at that time was on a Sunday night in amongst the darkness and the screaming. And of course, the reason was because those people weren't breaking down, they were breaking through. And Tony's voice, as you now know, came out of the darkness. And, Tony's a big guy, so he's got that booming, husky voice, hasn't he? And he said, I want you to imagine what your life will look like 20 years from now. Look back over your previous 5 years. What decisions have you been making that are impacting your life 20 years from now? What decisions could you make today that could impact your life 20 years from now? What loved ones do you have around you today that will be no longer with you 20 years from now because of the decisions you didn't make today? Because it's in our moments of decision, our destiny is shaped. And I was panicking and visualizing internally. So I was looking back at the last 5 years and realizing, I've put all my effort into setting up the best financial planning business I possibly could. I've put all my time and effort into that, but I looked down at myself and I was about 3 stone heavier than I am now, so 3 stone overweight. And also, I'd got a wife and 2 daughters, and I hadn't been spending the time with them that I should have been. I'd been putting my effort into setting up this business. And I realized that if I carried this on for 20 years, I got this visualization of being 20 stone with my gut hanging over the side of the chair. My wife and children had left me, and my business was worthless because it meant nothing to me anymore. And I realized that I needed to make some changes. And of course, Tony said some words that you probably heard over UPW last time, which is, if you make the same decisions today as you made yesterday, you'll get the same results tomorrow as you got today. So what decisions are you making around your money today, but expecting a different result from? And what decisions could you make today that could transform your life 20 years from now? But I want to take you to one last story to tell you a little bit more about me. And I want to take you to my Rutland office. Now, my Rutland office is a converted barn on a farm. And we look out of the meeting room window, which is these windows here. And we look across rolling fields, and we have red kites swooping in the sky and hares on the ground. And this particular day was the 17th of September 2015. And I was with a client of mine called David. Now, David is a balder, shorter version of me. And yes, for those of you that have seen me, it is possible to be shorter than me. And I was chatting to David, and he said to me, Charlie, I've been a client of yours now for 17 years, and I understand I've got all the money that I need to live off for the rest of my life. It's time for me to retire, and because of your help, I get that I've got enough money to retire. But he says, do you know what? That's not the thing that concerns me the most. What concerns me the most is what I'm going to do with my time when I stop work. And also, how am I going to keep fit and healthy? I've always been on my feet working, but have I got to start going to the gym for spinning classes in Lycra? Well, David is really not the sort of person to be turning up in Lycra, so that filled me with dread. But I said to David, I've got some interesting news for you, because I've heard this before, and I've got a present for you, because this morning a huge box arrived but it came from my publisher, and within it is the first copies of my new book, The Dream Retirement, How to Secure Your Money and Retire Happy. And I'd like you to have the first copy, not because of the money side of it, because the first half of the book is about the money side of retirement, but that I'd like you to pay particularly close attention to the second half, because in the second half I'll talk to you more about and try and help you understand how you can really build an amazing life after giving up work, and also improve your well-being. So that's the second half of the book. But what I didn't tell you about David actually was because David was a very important client to me. And the reason that David was a very important client to me was because David is my dad. So my dad was having the same concerns I'd seen time and again. And so that's why I wrote The Dream Retirement. And writing The Dream Retirement led to a bit of a roller coaster of success, because I started getting featured on national radio, then in national newspapers. And also I got to share the stage with internationally renowned speakers like Andy Harrington, Jerry Robert, and some other amazing people. Not Tony yet, but I'm working on that. So it's been an amazing roller coaster since that happened in 2015. And Efficient Portfolio, my financial planning business, is now ranked as one of the top financial planning businesses in the country. You don't need to take my word for it. That's what the Daily Telegraph has said. That's what some of our industry magazines have said. And also that's what is certified by the fact that we're a chartered financial planning firm, which puts us in the top 7% of all advisory practices in the country. And on my journey through the last 18 years in fact of the financial advisory world, I've discovered that there's 6 key steps to creating financial freedom, creating a truly financially free life. And I want to take you through what those are. Now, the first step, if you're going to embark on any big project, you need to apply some forethought to it. If you don't get this element of your journey right, you'll never be able to stop work. You'll never be able to retire. You'll never be able to spend that amazing later stage of your life with your loved ones doing the things that you're passionate about. Actually, you also won't be able to do many of the things that you'd want to do in the lead up to stopping work if you don't do this bit properly. If you do this properly, you'll be able to have a genuinely financially free future. And what I'm talking about is the prepare stage. Now, I don't know the age of this audience. By the way, thank you for the congratulations. That's just come through from the story. Thank you, guys. I was talking about prepare, and so I just lost my train of thought reading that question. But as Benjamin Franklin said, if you ask me to chop down a tree, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend 4 sharpening the axe. The key to financial freedom is this preparation stage. And my suspicion is that I'm getting an idea of some of your ages, so that's fantastic. So this is going to be the area that is most important to you guys. That I've seen somebody's 35 here. I can see similar ages coming up as well. So this was the bit that I was going to focus a little bit of attention on this evening, because this preparation stage is really the key to creating financial freedom later on. It's certainly the most important starting point, and it's a bit that our industry do really badly. Now, our industry is quite good at telling people that they need to save, really bad at telling you about the psychology around it and the systems that can really make it effective. By the way, raise your hands if you would agree that our industry is pretty bad at giving you, and actually our education system is pretty bad at giving you a good, solid financial understanding. Yeah, good few hands going up there, as I suspected. Thank you. So the preparation stage is absolutely vital. If you get this bit right, you can make so many huge inroads into a financially free future. So this bit really is important. And I suppose the analogy I would use here is that if I told you that next year you are only going to be able to work for 6 months of the year, you are going to have to work for 6 months, you're going to get paid for 6 months, for the second 6 months you're not going to be able to work and you're not going to be able to generate an income, what would you do? Now I'm guessing what you'd probably do is you'd put aside half of the money that you earned in that first 6 months so that you've got an income to put food on the table for the second 6 months. The problem is that people don't see their life from this perspective because they don't look far enough into the future. Roughly a third of your life probably will be spent relying on the amount of money that you save during your working life. That's a huge chunk of your life that you need to financially provide for. But people don't think about it like this. So all I'd ask you on this area is, are you thinking about the stage in your life where you won't want to work or you won't be able to work? And the next step to a financially free future is one of the things that if you've got this right, you'll have complete clarity on what your financial future looks like. You'll have a complete understanding of the impact that decisions you make today will have on that financial future. If you don't get this right, you're flying blind. You're unsure about any of the decisions you make today. You're unsure what the financial future will look like. And what I'm talking about is the plan stage. If there is no financial plan, you don't understand what's going on in the future. It's quite straightforward, and this is why Joseph said that the financial plan is so important. Actually, the financial plan is all of the things I'm going to talk about, but it gets encapsulated into the word plan, because this is the bit where if you look forward into the future, you can see what you're on track for, and you can make decisions today with that knowledge. It's also another area that our industry is really hopeless on, because the number of times that we have clients come to us that already have a financial advisor, and yet the reason they're coming to us is because they say, I've got a pension, but I don't know whether I'm on track to have enough money in retirement. I don't know whether I'm saving enough. So we use specific tools to help clients understand exactly what those elements are. And I suppose it's a bit like if I asked you to drive from your home to Land's End in Cornwall, bottom left-hand corner of England for those guys that aren't based in the UK. If I asked you to make that journey without a map, it would probably take you quite a long time, quite a lot longer than it would have ordinarily taken you, because you're going to make some wrong turns. Well, that is, unless you happen to live in Cornwall already. But it's going to take you a lot longer. And in fact, you may never even end up getting to Land's End, because you may get so horribly lost that you don't make it. But the problem is that most people embark on their financial journey in that way. And so you really need to think about what that journey looks like ahead. And there's specific tools that you can use that will help you do that. And so I suppose I'd just ask you to think about, what is your financial journey going to look like? The next piece of the jigsaw, the next one of the 6 steps towards financial freedom, if you get this wrong, you're going to have to save twice as much money as you would do otherwise. And also, you can risk blowing up the plan horribly later on. If you get this right, you can save less, you can do more with your money, and you can have more confidence and control over what's happening with your money, as well as more security, actually. So what I would call this is profit. Now, what do I mean by profit? Well, what I mean by profit is we want to get your money growing. It's all very well putting money aside, but if we don't get your money growing, then you're going to have to save twice as much money as you would have done otherwise. But it's not just any growth, not just any interest. I mentioned right at the start that we've got to get growth over and above inflation. Inflation is running higher than you get interest in your bank, quite significantly higher actually. So if you put the money in the bank, you're guaranteed for your money to go down each year in real terms. In other words, in terms of what you can buy with it. So you've got to get profit, which what I mean by profit is growth over and above inflation. And an example I can give you here of a client that we met. At the moment, it's quite easy to get your money going up because the markets have all been going up for the last few years. And really, any idiot can make money in a rising market. The problem is the difficult bit is protecting it when it's a falling market. And I had a client, so it's quite easy to look at investment figures nowadays and say, oh, well, this one's doing well, let's put my money into this. I would take you back to around 2013. Now, the reason I liked 2013 was because we could look at the investment performance from the peak before the credit crunch and look at 5 years performance, which is a good level of performance. Most investment reporting tends to stop at 5 years. So, but the great thing about reviewing investment performance at that point was that you could say, right, if you invested from the peak before the credit crunch, before the largest crash in modern times, seen the crash and then what's happened since, that really is a good demonstration of how good an investment provider is. And one particular client came to me in 2013, and he'd got a personal portfolio, a discretionary portfolio by one of the high street banks, and it was a private portfolio, so it was supposed to be their, the best of the best as far as they could see. This client in those 5 years had 5% growth, not 5% growth a year, 5% growth in total. So his money had crashed horribly with the credit crunch, and it just recovered and done slightly more in that 5 years. Now, we were analysing his investment performance at the time, and we showed him what he would have been had he been in our portfolio, not a made-up portfolio, the portfolio he would have been in had he come to us 5 years prior, and he would have had 42% growth in that time, from the peak prior to the credit crunch right the way through to that 5-year point. And that's not because we got more growth in the upward market, it's because we protected his money in the downward market. And that's where the key to profit comes in. So I just ask you to think about how your money is working for you. Are you generating a profit? And so far we've talked about putting money aside, having a clear plan for the future. We've talked about getting that money to work harder for you. Now, I suspect that maybe not many people on this call are at this stage yet, but as and when you get to retirement, you need to generate an income from that capital, and that, for me, is called a pension. And that's converting that capital into a pension, into an income. Just as a show of hands, raise your hand if you're within 5 years of retirement, just so I can see whether there's anybody there. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so there is one person there. Brilliant, thank you for that. So the decisions that you make around this stage in your financial freedom journey will have a huge impact on what the rest of your life looks like. It will have a huge impact in terms of what you can do and the flexibility that you can have, but also what happens to your money when you've gone. And the decisions that get made around here are really quite huge. And I suppose the problem is that the retirement landscape is changing drastically, and it's making pensions so much more attractive, but because they're so much more flexible. The old way of retiring gave you a flat income for the rest of your life. But for me, that's stupid, because that assumes you're as likely to climb Kilimanjaro at 95 as you are at 65. Well, we all know that that's not going to happen. The older you get, the less likely you are to go out and do crazy things like climbing Kilimanjaro, and the less likely you're less likely to leave the country and the house. So actually, you want to create a dynamic income that can create the lifestyle that you want. And so that getting that pension right is vital, and the decisions you make in the lead up to and at retirement are crucial, because they make a huge impact on the rest of your life. Now, would you agree that things tend to change over time, particularly in the financial world? I'm sure you would. So if you get this next bit right, you can ensure that your financial plan continues to evolve with you. If you get it wrong, you're going to end up paying too much tax, paying too high charges. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to get burnt from an investment point of view. And so the key next step is what I would call progress. And what I mean by progress is that every year there is going to be a huge variety of changes to the legislation, changes to the tax system, changes to the investment market, changes to your situation. And only if you evolve your financial plan on a yearly basis will you be able to make the most of those changes, because otherwise gradually you will find it stagnates. And like water that's left aside, that stagnates, so will your financial plan. And you really don't want your financial planning stagnating. So it's vital that you continue to review this. And then the final area is, for me, probably the most important. Raise your hand if you think there's more to a happy life than just the money. Yeah, absolutely. Of course there is. We all know there is far more to life than just the money. And in fact, if anybody has anybody read Thrive by Arianna Huffington? Oh, sorry, I forgot to put the hands down there. Has anybody read Thrive by Arianna Huffington? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, there are a couple of people there. So Arianna talks about the 3 pillars of success. And she says, historically it was all about money and power. But actually, if you get all the money and all the power in the world and you don't have well-being, then actually what use is it? And I would say the same applies to financial planning. So for me, if you don't get this last element right, you're going to have a boring, broke and brief later life. If you do get it right, you're going to be living out a life full of purpose, passion, and one that you just feel amazing living. And so that's, for me, the personal side of financial planning. And if you get that bit right, you can, live an amazingly rewarding life. So on my journey, I've obviously worked with people to help them in all of these areas. And so what I started realizing is I needed to build specific tools to help people in these specific areas. So I want to talk you through a little bit about that now, and then that will be where we lead this this webinar on this evening. So in the area of preparing for your retirement, we created the Smart Saving Solution. Now, the Smart Saving Solution allows people to really understand the psychology of how they can become financially free in the future, but also understand the systems that allow them to become financially free and how they can protect themselves when something unexpected happens. That, for me, is the key to creating a financially free future. So the Smart Saving Solution helps people do that. And I'm going to dive into some of the detail on that this evening because I guessed that the audience would be more focused around this stage. Second stage I'm going to dive into a bit more this evening is the plan stage, because that ultimately is what I think is partly what Joseph was talking about when he talked about the financial plan. So I created the Safe Retirement Roadmap so that we could help our clients really see into their financial future, really understand what they're on track for, help them make better decisions today. I then created the Radical Investment Approach to show our clients how they could start to get their money working that much harder for them, to really give them control over the amount of risk that gets taken, because most people take too much risk with their investments. And actually you need to take a level of risk that's appropriate to your situation, but also appropriate to your tolerance, because otherwise you'll end up undoing all of the good work you do because you'll get scolded and burned, like so many people did in the credit crunch. The next piece of the jigsaw is what I call the Dream Income Strategy. And that's the tool with which we help clients really understand the options that they have at that later stage in life, as and when they need to start drawing down that income. Leaving it to the point of which you actually retire is too late. You need to be doing that in the 5 to 10 years prior to retirement, so that you're getting your retirement strategy into the right position so that you can maximize the money and maximize the choices that you've got. And the tools that we have within the Dream Income Strategy, I'll give you an example of a client came to us and he was being asked to retire 3 years earlier than he was expecting. He was a partner in a firm, but he wasn't the senior partner, and the senior partner decided that he was going to make sure he retired. It's very difficult for him to go back to work and find a job having been part of a partnership all those years. But he hadn't got to the point where he felt he'd got enough money. And of course, he'd promised his wife this amazing retirement and lots of things like an amazing new kitchen, and he felt he'd let her down and the rest of his family down, and he was really quite devastated when he came to me. And using the tools that we have in the Dream Income Strategy, we were able to show him how he could actually afford to retire, living out the life that he actually really had wanted, and including the kitchen and the travelling and all of that sort of stuff, and still leave a legacy to his loved ones with what he did there. And that's because of the tools that helped him make the right choices within the dream income strategy. Now, I said that things change, and of course for our clients things change. So many years ago we created what we call the progressive review program. I believe our industry does this job very poorly. They tend to be only keen to see you when they think they can sell you something new. And we felt that that was always very much a wrong approach. So the progressive review program really is how we help our clients ensure that their financial planning evolves with them, and it's therefore not driven by whether we need to sell them something or not, because that's not important. And then finally, we created the Fulfilled Life Formula to really help people leave a legacy to their loved ones, leave a legacy to things that are important to them, but create their own well-being and time. So that's how we help our clients with that approach. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's helped you understand what I think can create some financial freedom. Now, as I said, I want to dive into some specific topics this evening that I think will help you a lot in deciding how you can really create your journey, whether that's however you want to go about doing that. So I'm going to start off with the smart saving solution. Now, I'm going to given in the interest of time, I normally spend a day covering these 5 points here and another day and a half covering the points that we have here. So this is going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, so I apologize in advance for that, but I don't have a full 8 hours this evening to go through this, but I hope you'll get, I've tried to pick out what I think are the most valuable and important points that for this particular audience, particularly given what Tony talks about. So in the smart saving solution, oh, look at that, I've just looked at a mistake, I've just spotted a mistake on my slides. That's not the smart retirement saving system at all, it's the smart saving system. But anyway, it doesn't really matter, only me, probably only I would have noticed it anyway. But I mentioned the whole rationale part. Now, what do I mean by rationale? Well, rationale is the principles behind which you save. If you get this bit right, if you understand some of the secrets that are going on behind the scenes with your money and the psychological approach to saving, you can really maximize your financial future. Some of the stuff that I'm going to go through now, you may have heard before. If you've read Tony's books, you'll definitely have read about them before. But ultimately, if you understand why they're so important, hopefully it will help you make the right decisions for you. So within that, there's one thing that there's a couple of particular principles I want to touch on tonight. I can't do them all tonight, but the first one, probably the most important of all these principles, is what's called compound growth. Now, compound growth is the effect that it has on your money of the growth on the growth on the growth. The longer you can allow your money to grow, the more that will grow too, because of that impact of the growth on the growth on the growth. And I want to give you an example of this. So if a 40-year-old puts £100 a month aside until age 65, they've saved a fund of 107,000. Oh, sorry. If this grows at 6% during their work that time, 6% a year, then that will reach a fund of £107,000. Not bad. Can't remember. I should have done the maths as to, I can't remember. I think they put £30,000 in. I think that's the figure, but I might be wrong. I haven't got that in front of me. However, which actually, that's good. It's compound growth. It's growing. They put £30,000 in. They've got £107,000. What pays 6% these days? Great question, Fame. I'll come on to that later on. So £107,000 seems like a good return. However, had a 20-year-old paid £56 a month in up to age 65, they would have paid in exactly the same amount. Both of them have paid in exactly the same amount. If the figure was 30,000, which I think it is, then they both paid in exactly the same amount. However, the 20-year-old obviously started 20 years younger, and they have a fund of £153,000. That's a 43% increase purely based on compound growth. Now, time is an important factor because it says, let's get saving as soon as possible. Clearly, we can't go back in time, but there is no time like the present. But time isn't the only factor that compound growth affects. And that is because it also affects the rate. Now, Fame asked a great question. What pays 6% at the moment? I will come on to that later on, but I'm going to work with it for the time being. So the 20-year-old paying £56 a month until age 65, fund of £153,000 at 6% per annum. However, at 7% growth, just 1% more, which might not sound like a lot, that fund becomes £212,000. That's a further 39% increase. Now, whether... Oh, sorry, somebody's asking me a question. Okay, same. Yeah, same. Can't find the same 6%. I'll help you with that in a bit. Just be patient on that. Oh, and I've got... Yeah, okay, fantastic. That's another point. Thank you. Thank you, Frida. So 39%. So all... It doesn't really matter whether this is 6 and 7, 5 and 6. All I'm trying to highlight here is there's what 1% more can make a huge difference to the amount of money that you end up with. Now that 1% could be by paying less tax, by having a more tax efficient investment. It could be by paying lower charges. It could be by getting 1% more growth. All of those three things would have exactly the same impact. The point is that the more that you can allow compound growth to work, the more money you will have. And I want to tell you just a very quick story. My best man lives over in Singapore. And so when he comes over to the UK, there's always a fair bit of banter. And we both like playing golf, so we usually go off and play some golf. And so Chris was over and we were going to play golf. And there's always, as I say, there's always a fair bit of banter. You know, I hit the ball and Chris will say something like, you stand too close to the ball, Charlie, after you've hit it, and all of that sort of nonsense. Anyway, he works for an investment bank out in Singapore. I won't mention which one because you may judge them. But anyway, he said in typical investment banker fashion, right, we're going to play some golf, Charlie. Let's play for money. And now I like to be cautious with my money, so I said, well, if you insist, what we'll do is we'll play for 10p a hole. And Chris, being the risky investment banker that he is, wasn't very happy with that, but he said, okay, fine, we'll start on 10p a hole, but we're going to double it each hole. So I said, okay, fine, that sounds sensible. So we play for 10p first hole. He wins the hole, but it's only 10p, no stress there. Second hole, 20p. Again, no problem. Third hole, 40p. I think I won that one, so I was kind of happy with that, and 80p at the fourth, and £1.60 at the fifth, starting to get a little bit more interesting, starting to make me think a little bit, but I've got a successful financial planning business. £1.60 hole isn't going to do me too much harm. So this is where it gets interesting, because by the 10th, we were playing for £51.20 a hole. By the 17th, £6,553 a hole, and £13,107 a hole had we finished this strategy. Now, you'll be pleased to know I didn't carry on playing for money each hole. But the reason I'm telling you this story is because this is the principle of compound growth. Now, this, of course, is a doubling of money, which is extreme. But ultimately, this is the power of compounding. And so you really need to get that money working as hard for you as possible, because it will take so much of the legwork out of it for you. You will have to save a lot less if you get this right. Now, another principle, which is a really important principle to understand if you're in the saving stage, which almost everybody here is called pound cost averaging. So I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to give you a choice. You can either, and we're going to invest monthly on this, and in this example, we're going to invest £100 a month over a 3-month period. So I'm going to give you investment A to pick from. And investment A starts at £1, it goes up to £1.10, and it goes up to £1.20. And then I'm going to give you investment B to pick from. So investment B starts at £1, crashes horribly down to 50p, and then goes back up to £1. Now, raise your hand if you would choose to invest in investment A, given the choice. Okay, few hands go up. Great. Seems like a logical thing, doesn't it? Because it's going up. And in fact, if you invested those 3 lots of £100, you'd find that your investment of £300 has gone up to £327. Quite a nice little return. However, in investment B, we've got a value of £400. Now, how on earth can that be possible? I'm guessing as a few hands didn't go up, you understand the principles of this, but because you're investing monthly, when the markets crash horribly, your £100 buys twice as many units. As and when it just recovers back to where it was, that element of your investment doubles. And the reason I'm telling you this is if you're investing regularly, you actually want a more volatile market because it boosts the investment returns, as you've seen from here. Now, you don't want it to be so volatile that it goes down to zero, but you do want a volatile market because it will boost the amount of money that you end up with. So pound cost averaging is telling us to A, not take too little risk, and B, invest regularly rather than doing it all in one hit. Once a month is much better than once a year. So there's a couple of pieces of the rationale. The second piece of the jigsaw, now I don't know if anybody saw this, but on the Facebook page, on one of the posts I put out, somebody put a link there for T. Harv Eker. So if you get this next bit right, you can have a system that will create financial freedom almost by itself. If you don't get this right, you'll have no clarity on what's going on your monthly money, and you'll probably end up with more month at the end of your money. And that is money management. And I'm not going to go into this in a lot of detail. There's books that you can read on this. It was Fame. It was Fame that's put this on. Great. Thank you, Fame. So this is my version of what you've just described as the 6 jars. But I did, Fame, did you do Quantum Leap? Have you done Quantum Leap, T. Harv Eker's Quantum Leap? Has anybody done? Raise your hand if anybody's done Quantum Leap. Oh, yeah, so you're in the process of doing it. Oh, so you did Millionaire Mind Intensive. And you're, okay, great. Well, it's a great thing. Not quite of the standard of UPW, I have to say, but it's a good thing or nonetheless. Anyway, are you a warrior, by the way, Fame? You will be. A hoe to well, you will be. I am a warrior. Anyway, moving on. I'm easily distracted by that stuff. So money management is really the system that we can put in place to maximize the monthly income that you get. And I just want to go through a very basic approach to it. Now, this is my interpretation. This isn't T. Harv Eker's interpretation, because this is taken from him, from The Richest Man in Babylon, which is a great book on this subject, by the way, from David Back and The Automatic Millionaire, another great book on this subject. So I just want to explain this. So this concept is when every time you get money coming into your account, usually on a monthly basis if you're employed, then you should set up diverts to fire this money out into different places, because it will make you far wealthier in the future. Now, the first one you need is some long-term money. If I had longer to talk to you about this evening, I would tell you about this in more detail, but typically this should be a pension. It should be a pension because in the UK, anyway, so apologies for those people that aren't in the UK, you've probably got a similar version in wherever you live. But essentially, the reason that this is so powerful for long-term saving is because you don't pay any income tax now. You defer it until the point at which you retire, at which point you're generally earning less, so you pay a lower tax rate. Plus, in the UK, 25% of that money comes out tax-free. So from a long-term point of view, the most tax-efficient way of saving for income later on is the pension. So we need to divert some money into the pension. Now, don't get caught up in the fact that there's a lot of press around pensions being rubbish. That's examples of, it's like saying all cars are rubbish when all you're looking at is Robin Reliance and Fiat Pandas. The tax wrapper is the concept. The pension is fantastic. What you put into it is then determines whether it's any good or not. So the best place for that long-term money is the pension. Medium term, so you need to get money, that might be for setting up your own business for a few years from now. It might be for children's education. It might be because you want to retire earlier than you can get access to a pension, all of those sorts of things, but you still need that money working harder for you. So generally in the UK, that is the ISA, the different types of ISAs, because that means your money's growing tax-free, which is always a good thing. You then need savings for specifics. Now these are typically savings accounts. I have I have two of these now actually. I've amalgamated one. So I have house and car as one. So those are savings every month. The day after I get paid, money automatically goes off into this account for the house and car. So that's money for me to renovate and do my house up and spend more money on, put more money aside for new cars. And then the other one I have is for travel. Travel is a big, important part of my life, so I like traveling with my family. So I put aside money every month into a separate account for travel. But that gives you the clarity and budgeting skills that just will empower you so much. And by the way, the best place for that savings for specifics is usually savings accounts. That's because you're going to want to divert money in on a regular basis into that. Now, the account I love the most, other than my financial freedom fund, which is the long-term one, is my play account. So every month after I draw money out of my business, some money goes into a play account for me. And it is a normal current account, but it's a play account, and a separate current account for my wife. That's our play account. The lovely thing about that is if Carol wants to buy 3 pairs of shoes in a month, I don't care. It's not my business because she's going to spend her play account money. Equally, if I want to go and spend money on my bike or golf or something crazy like that, then I don't have to feel guilty about it because it's my play account money. And so we budget for that specifically. For those people at the Million Mind Intensive, they talk about the savers and the spenders. For the savers that are inclined to save too much money and not enjoy reap what they sow, this really encourages you to spend money on nice meals, on nice things, on nice experiences, and it actually rewards you for working hard for your money. For the frivolous, the spenders amongst us that spend too much money, it gives you accountability on how much money you're spending on nice things, and solves that problem of overspending. You then need an incident account. So this is for if the boiler blows up, the car blows up, anything like that. You need some money in cash. Now, sometimes that might be just, you don't really need more money in that than 3 to 6 months expenditure. But generally speaking, you might have to dip into that. So you're going to still want money diverting into that, and you can just sweep it out when it gets too much into other areas. And then finally, you need money, an account for essentials, where you pay the mortgage from, where you pay rent from, all of those sorts of things. If you've got a money management system set up like that, I guarantee you will become financially free in the future. And in fact, I want to talk a little bit about the psychology of this system. The magic behind this system is not so much the amounts, but the habit. And how much you put in depends, but I would say that you should aim for 10% into long term, 10% into medium term, and then only you can really decide how you lay out those percentages. I know T. Harv Eker gives us some specific ones. He also puts a learning fund in there, which of course might be impacting the fact, might be influenced by the fact that he wants you to spend lots of money on his courses. And there can also be a charitable one in there as well. I personally do have a charitable one, and you can probably tell from doing things like UPW and T. Harv Eker's things and lots of other things that I also have a learning account as well. But if you just apply that approach, then it will massively empower your financial future. I'm not going to go into any detail on it, but the next step is then to automate. If you automate that money, so set standing orders up, set direct debits up, you've got to make sure that that money leaves your account the day after you get paid and goes into all of those different accounts. That is the key. Only once you automate that process. T. Harv Eker talks about jars. Don't literally put the money in jars because your money is getting eaten away every day that you do that. But automating it is the key. I've talked briefly about tax wrappers. I don't have time to go into that tonight, but essentially the trick to that is getting the pension as the long term, the ISA as the medium term, and that can be lifetime ISAs if you're under 40. They're quite useful as well, a new thing that's been introduced to the UK. But because a few of you aren't based in the UK, I won't take long talking about that. But really maximising the impact by minimising tax is vital. So I want to dive into a little bit now the Safe Retirement Roadmap, because this for me is the essence of the financial plan. Let me just check, see if there's any, okay, just comments. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, guys. Just to check you're all still there, raise your hand if this is, raise your hand if this is proving useful. Have you learned something useful this evening? Okay, amazing. Thank you, guys. I'm glad it's proving beneficial, and thank you for the comment as well. Right, this is where it gets really exciting for me. I love this part of what we do for clients, because this is how we empower people to really create an amazing financial future. Now, I'm going to focus mostly on the last 2 points of the Safe Retirement Roadmap, so I'm going to skip through a couple of them quite quickly. The first step to the Safe Retirement Roadmap is evaluating your the financial stuff that you've already got. You've probably already got pensions, savings, investments, all of that sort of stuff. And I'm getting a question here. Let me just go back just a second. So in Belgium you have to pay for several accounts. Okay. You might want to moderate it depending on how much money is in each account. You might want to reduce that down. You definitely need a separate long-term account. You definitely need a separate medium-term investment account. I would definitely have some savings account, even if you put together house, travel and car all into one. I really still would have one play account, but that could be one with you and your partner, and then have one necessities account. As a minimum, that's what I would do, Nuria. So thank you for the question. So back to the Safe Retirement Roadmap. The Safe Retirement Roadmap, the first step, which I'm only going to touch on, is to evaluate, because people accumulate lots of different financial products through their working life. And really, they need to make more of them. And I suppose the analogy I would use is my first ever car was a turquoise Vauxhall Nova, looking something like this. Now, we've just ordered one of the i3s, a fully electric car, and I'm sure you'll agree that these are quite different creatures. A completely electric car was just the only place that existed was in The Simpsons when I was growing up. But the reason I use this analogy is that lots of people that I meet still have pensions and savings and investments that were set up in the days that I was driving around in a turquoise Nova. The modern day investments and tax wrappers and investment and savings are so much better and so different to those that existed years ago. You wouldn't want to be carrying around your life's worth in a car like that. Therefore, don't leave your money in a very old, rusty vehicle. You've really got to make sure that you understand what you've got and evaluate them. And then really the key to successful financial future is amalgamating them into what's called a wrap platform. It just makes sure that you can have all of the tax wrappers that you need to minimize tax, but it puts all your investments in one centralized place, so you can just log in, see all of your different investments, have one centralized investment approach. It's a fantastic solution. If you look on our website, I think there is a video that explains this in more detail, because I haven't really got time for this evening. Because where I want to go to is a tool that allows you to see your financial future, allows to model what your financial future looks like. If you don't have this tool, you're flying blind. You're guessing. You're going to be making huge mistakes with your financial future, but you're going to be unaware of them. And what I'm talking about is the forecast, specifically a lifetime cash flow forecast. So what does that look like? Well, the lifetime cash flow forecast looks like this. Actually, there's a number of charts that it produces, but there's two key ones that I want to focus on. First is your income versus your expenditures. See, this is somebody aged at 29, and we've modelled it right the way through to age 100. We assume everybody's going to live to 100. So this black line here is the amount of their money they spend. You can see it drops in retirement. The blue blocks are their income. So you can see they've got more income than they need during their working life. But the blue blocks don't reach that line in retirement. So you can see that red is highlighting the fact that they're on track to run out of money by the time they're 63. This person, actually we only model this person up to age 89, but this person has a rising income, probably isn't that sensible, but a rising income throughout the rest of their life, but they've always got enough income to meet their expenditure. So that's the first chart that's really important. The second chart is what we call a liquid assets chart. And this shows the values of the investments and savings that you've got in the background. And the value, this example, obviously his investments and savings are staying flat during his working life. And then in retirement, he's spending it really quickly, which guess what is why it's the first example that ran out of money. Whereas this person, the second example, had more than enough money, enough income, because his investments and savings are actually continue to rise during his life. So in other words, this person could be spending more than he already is. So the lifetime cash flow forecast just gives you such clarity. Now we build one of these for our clients. There are more basic versions of this online. It allows you to be more dynamic around how you design your income instead of having a flat income. And it allows you to also be more effective from a tax planning point of view, looking at do you spend the pension first and leave the investments, or vice versa, and the tax implications, and which decision allows you to make the most money in the future. And I suppose it comes back to a bit of something that I touched on earlier on, which is it's like taking a journey. And when I was living in London, me and two girlfriends of mine, and by the way, that's before you question my morals, that's friends that were girls, not two girlfriends. But we decided we were going down to a party in Brighton on the south coast. But it was years ago, long before SatNav and Google Maps, and I didn't have a map in my car. And stupidly, we embarked on this journey, just saying, well, we'll follow signposts. We're bound to pick up the right signs. Well, we made some foolish choices early on, and we started going out on the A3. And because we saw signs to Portsmouth, and we knew that was on the south coast and fairly close. But you can see actually an hour and a half into a journey that should have taken an hour and a half, we were somewhere in the middle of here, horribly lost. And so we had to pull into a garage and say, firstly, can we buy a map? And secondly, can you tell us where on the map we are? And we turned up to the park. We nearly missed all of the party because we were so horribly late. But this is the way that most people go about their financial future. And the lifetime cash flow forecast is your sat-nav to make sure that if you want to go to the party in Brighton, you get there. And if a road is closed and you have to divert around, you still get there. If financial freedom is what you're targeting, the cash flow forecast just tells you how you're going to get there. And when something unexpected happens, it tells you what diversions you need to take to still be able to get there. So the lifetime cash flow forecast really is hugely powerful. I encourage you to get one done, either professionally by somebody like us, or find something more basic online. Just be careful with the assumptions you use. And the last point is about the scenarios, and we work with our clients to really help them imagine what's important to them in the future, because only if we all understand really what's important to you in the future can we help you build a financial plan that delivers it. So many people go through life not really understanding what really ticks their boxes, flicks their switches, and actually if you have a financial advisor that doesn't understand that, then he's not pulling in the same direction as you. So I've been on a number of courses to help me really help clients understand and see what's important to them in the future so that we can help them plan for it. Now, we've had a couple of questions. Where can I get, oh, hang on, I've got a message saying PowerPoint is just in the process of crashing. Forgive me, guys, it's just going to reload. I'm just going to have to put, don't you love Microsoft? Right, hang on just a sec. I've just got to jump back to where I was. Okay. Right, we're back on track. Sorry about that, guys. Technology, hey. Let's get my screens all sorted out. Okay. So I now want to, we've had a couple of people say, how do we get 6% growth? Where can you possibly get 6% growth nowadays? Well, let's dive into a little bit of the radical investment approach. We can't do all of this tonight, and it's a whistle-stop tour, as you're already guessing, but I just want to cover a couple of things. Now, I've already talked about growth over and above inflation. I just want to show you this chart to show you this is what happened to your money if you put it in the best bank account possible from 2009 to 2013. The orange line is what happened to your money in real terms. That's your money going down every year. And I suppose that I'd liken it to the way that chocolate bars have not only got expensive, but also more smaller. I'm going to skip over that story of my daughter Bronwyn, just because I haven't got time for it this evening. But as you can see, my daughter Bronwyn had a rather chubby face, and actually I thought she was a boy for the first 20 minutes of her life. She was called Ewan for 20 minutes, but I'm going to skip over that story because I haven't really got time for it now. But it's quite an amusing one, and it links into that. Your eyes tricking you. You've got to assess the level of risk that you're tolerant to, but there is a key step here that's really important. If you read Tony Robbins' books, then he will refer back to the most important piece of investment approach is asset allocation. That's what Tony Robbins says, that's what Warren Buffett says, that's what the head of Dimensional Investment Managers says in Tony's book, head of Vanguard as well, some of the hedge fund managers that he interviews in his books. Asset allocation is the most important aspect of investing. And what do I mean by asset allocation? Well, asset allocation is the split that you put your money into. It's the spread of the different assets. And I would liken it to if you invest in an ice cream company and an umbrella company, you will do well in any British summer. It's about getting you good returns whilst also protecting. I mentioned earlier about that client that we were showing the investment performance to, that we protected, our clients have been protected through the credit crunch. Doesn't mean their money didn't go down, it just didn't go down anything like as much as the market. And then when the markets go up, you benefit, you ride on the upside. The asset allocation is the most important principle that I can share with you for investing. The spread of those investments. Now, Tony in his book gives you a set spread. Personally, I would disagree with that because this spread should change. It's a great starting point, but actually it's flawed because of where we are in the economic cycle. And that is because interest rates are only going one way. His asset allocation has done well because we've been in a constantly interest rate reducing environment. But if interest rates rise, then that approach won't work as well, which is one of the reasons why I said, while some of his stuff is brilliant, there's other bits of it is not quite so. But because the problem is that people tend to, when they're picking their own investment choices, they tend to go out, and by the way, this chart just looks at all of the best asset class and the worst asset class for each year. And what tends to happen is somebody will say, right, I need to pick an investment fund. What's done well? Oh, REITs have done well. By the way, they're property. REITs have done well. I'm going to put my money into REITs. Next year, bang, they're the worst performing asset. Right, oh, I didn't do so well there, so I'm going to switch my money to emerging markets because they're doing really well at the moment. Bang, worst performing asset. Well, I'm going to be a bit more cautious now, put my money in government bonds. Bam, worst performing asset. It's the diversified portfolio that smooths the returns and gives you the best return possible. And I'm going to skip over that. But one thing that Tony does talk about a lot in his book is active versus passive. And that, what I mean by passive is that a passive is where you just follow the investment markets. You pay lower costs and you just track the markets with an ETF or a tracker fund. An active approach is where you're paying fund managers to try and beat the market. Now, Tony's absolutely right. In certain markets, it's nearly impossible for them to beat the market. In the US, only about 5% of managers manage to beat the market returns after their costs. So for the US, he's absolutely right. You should be using passive approaches, and Japan's the same. The problem is that isn't right for the rest of the world, or most of the rest of the world. In fact, in the UK, it's completely the opposite. So we do this charting every quarter. And what this chart shows us is this is 7 different portfolios. Each one of those dots is a level of risk. So each of those dots is the same asset allocation, the same split. The only difference is that the green line is the fully passive approach. And by the way, this chart is after all charges. The orange line is the fully active approach. So that's where you're taking an active approach, even in those areas like America and Japan, where it's not that clever. The best line is the top line. So the best annual return is that top line. That's the line that our clients have been getting, and that's the blended approach. And it's typically about 75% active, about 25% passive. But that blended approach is and we do this every quarter. We've been doing it every quarter for the last 4 years, and every quarter without fail, the blended approach has been best, and the passive has been worse, with the exception of some very, very low levels of risk down here. So just be mindful of that if you're reading Tony's book, because in the UK in particular, having some active investments does prove worthwhile. And I also, somebody said about property. Now, one risk that gets forgotten, somebody said about property in a message to me earlier. Should I be investing in property for the long term? Well, the problem is that, and this is a problem that's not exclusive to property, but liquidity risk is a very much a forgotten risk. If you buy a property and you decide you want to get your money back quickly, you're stuck. Firstly, you probably can't sell it for a minimum of 3 months, even if you accept an offer very quickly. Even if you accept an offer quickly, if you accept an offer quickly, you probably have to sell it at a bit of a discount to get the offer quickly. And even then it can fall through. And if you're in a falling market, it can fall through several times and end up getting lower price each time. So you have liquidity risk with lots of investments. And if the property market is falling like a stone, trying to get out is nearly impossible. So liquidity risk applies to lots of different investments, like structured products like that some of the banks do. But in particular, property offers liquidity risk. But it also offers another risk, which the person that sent me a message just wanted me to explain. And that is, at the moment, you can offset, if you've got a buy-to-let mortgage, you can offset that as a cost against your rental income, which means that you can get away with paying less tax. Over the next few years, that is being phased out. This year is the first year that you're no longer going to be able to completely offset all of your interest charges from your borrowing against your portfolio. So this was a particular example that we worked through for a client. Now, this was a big property portfolio, but he went from paying 0 tax in 2016 to £80,000 a year in tax alone by 2021. That has taken him from a break-even point to a loss-making point. And that is going to happen for a huge amount of the buy-to-let investors that are out there. So guess what's going to happen? Property prices are going to come crashing down when people suddenly realize they're having to pay for the privilege of owning their buy-to-let properties. So you want to be really mindful. Personally, I don't think the buy-to-let market, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole at the moment. I might in 2021 after I think there'll probably be a crash, but even then, you've got to be really careful because you can't offset your borrowings against it. And even if you don't have borrowings, if you want to sell your property in the next 10 years, I'd be very cautious about what's likely to happen. Oh, somebody says they can't hear me anymore. Raise your hand if you can still hear me. Okay. It seems that most people can still hear me. So I'm guessing, Amajin, it might be a local problem to you. So I'll have to leave you to fix that, I'm afraid. Sorry. Hopefully you can hear me in a second. I'll just send a quick message. Okay, so sorry about that. I just sent her a private message. So just be mindful of the risk to property in the future, and be mindful of liquidity risk, because when you go into things that you can't get out of quickly, you can find that you watch it all the way to the bottom. As I've seen clients where they've come to us with very high risk, low liquidity investments, and they've just literally watched them go to zero. And I don't have time to talk about rebalancing now, so I'm going to skip through this. But actually, it's just while I'm doing that, it's just an important point that you need to rebalance your portfolio. Otherwise, it gradually gets riskier and riskier over time. I can explain that another time to you. But employing the right investment approach really does make a huge impact. So on this chart, this is all proper data. You've got the green line is the amount of money you've got in the 90-day savings account over the last 4 years, 3.5 years. The orange line is inflation. So that difference is how much your money has gone down. Now, if you have a properly diversified portfolio with a reasonable asset allocation, and you just get the average return of all the people in that world, that turquoise line is the return that you got over that period of time. So roughly 26% growth over the last 4 years. So that's more than your 6% growth by quite a considerable margin. So that's just the average of all the funds that have between 40 and 85% equity exposure over that time. Now, our clients, we want to protect them. When these fall here, we want to protect that money much better. That really, you'll notice, so that red line there is the investment return our clients were getting, and that's a level of risk at about 60 out of 100 being high risk, one being low risk. So it's not a super risky portfolio. It's not far off where the majority of our clients lie, actually, particularly if they're kind of a bit of a distance from retirement. So that red line there is the exact performance that clients on that level of risk received over that time frame. So that is exactly where you can get decent growth from, and that, as you can see, that's 42% over a 3.5 year period. That's astonishingly good growth, better growth than I would have expected. I wouldn't expect it to look like that for the next 4 years, but you can see providing protection in a downward market when other funds aren't doing as well is key, and getting growth on an upward market. So we've talked about preparing for retirement, we talked about planning for later life, we talked about getting profit out of your money, we talked about generating an income from your money when you get to retirement, we talked about ensuring your financial planning progresses with you, and we talked about the personal side of retirement. And we also talked about how the smart savings solution could help you. The safe retirement roadmap, we've touched on some of the detail there. We've looked a little bit at the radical investment approach. And we haven't touched on the dream income strategy. I don't have time to do that tonight. I've talked to you a little bit about the progressive review program, which is how we help our clients and how we can help you ensure that your financial planning evolves with you. And then we also talked briefly about the fulfilled life formula, which is where we help you really create an amazing later life. Now, some of you might be asking, how do I get involved, or how do I get Efficient Portfolios help if you think that you need a financial plan? As a firm, we say that we will deal with pretty much anybody, but we have different approaches for different people, and it's only easy to work that out once we know a little bit about your situation. But I would like to, if it's okay with you, tell you a little bit more about how we can help you with that. Because the first step, if you would like our help with creating a financial plan, is what we call the exploration meeting. Now, the exploration meeting really covers 3 main things. It will show you how financial planning can help you and the process that you're going to need to go through to get where you want to get to. It'll allow you to understand all about your current financial situation. And then most importantly, it'll allow you to imagine and create your own financial future so that we can help you plan for it. Now, we have a unique approach at Efficient Portfolio. We don't just, you won't all be coming to me. In fact, possibly none of you will be coming to me. We have a number of advisors, and we have a very much a team approach. So we have, in addition to a number of financial planners, we also have client relationship managers. We have people that specialize in the plan writing. We have people that specialize in the research that goes into those plans. So it is very much a team approach, and because we think that allows us to deliver far more power to our clients. It also is why we're taking a lot of business off other financial advisory firms where typically they only tend to have one support person per advisor. In fact, many only have half a support person per advisor. So it really is it's not a unique approach, but it's close to unique. And certainly from a financial planning point of view, we have a very much a unique approach, particularly as we incorporate all of those softer side of retirement. So what does an expiration meeting look like? Well, it looks like it happens at either our Rutland office or our London office. It takes 1.5 hours of undivided attention from both you and the financial planner. If you're a couple, really wants to be done as a couple, because this is stuff that you need to be working on together, so that you can achieve that that dream together. We normally charge £397 for an expiration meeting, but for you guys, as you are UPW attendees, and I really want to try and help you create an amazing financial future, we would do it for free. So that's 1.5 hours of a chartered or a financial planner's time, really helping you understand how you can create a financially free future. Now, I've got a couple more I've got one more point that I wanted to go through with you. I'm conscious I said I would finish in 1.5 hours. Raise your hand if you'd like me to go through one more point just now, because I'm going to come back to something else afterwards that I think is really important. But if you've got time and you want one more point, then raise your hand. Okay, fantastic. That's nearly everybody. For that, if you guys have to dash off that haven't raised your hand, which is only a few of you, so thank you for that. That's fantastic. Then all you need to do, if you want to book an expiration meeting, there's a couple of things. I want to talk about something for those guys that aren't based in the UK, and there's something else I want to talk about creating a legacy, which I think is amazingly powerful and doesn't get touched on much by financial planners. So if you do need to go before I get to the end of these points, then if you email me at charlie@efficientportfolio.co.uk, and I'll send you an email or a message afterwards, because if you've registered for this, we'll send you a follow-up message anyway. But if you'd like an expiration meeting, it can also be done virtually. It doesn't have to be in our London or Rutland office. We can do it by GoToMeeting. Then please get in contact with us and we'll book you in with one of an appropriate advisor's time. What we'll do is we'll have a 15-minute call first, just to make sure we understand your situation and we can book you in with the right people, and then we'll book you in for that meeting. So, but great, thank you. I'm delighted that you want to hear more. So there's a couple more points that I just wanted to touch on. And the first is that, what happens when we die? I mentioned right at the start that this stuff can have a huge impact on the loved ones around you, not just yourselves. And what typically happens if you haven't got a will, you need to have a will. But even if you've got a will, that isn't enough, because what tends to happen, it means that you leave everything to one person, and the idea is that you usually want to leave it onto your children thereafter. The problem is that means everything's in that person's estate for inheritance tax. If they were to get remarried and divorced, if they were to have financial difficulties, the creditors will take it. If they were to get remarried and then die, the future spouse might end up with all of it. And of course, as and when it passes down to the children, if they get married and divorced, all of your hard-earned money could be disappearing off to the son or daughter-in-law from hell. So what can we do to create a legacy with all of your hard work? And by the way, I suppose you can also think about this, if you're in your 30s and 40s, think about this from a point of view of your parents as well, because that will impact you here. So think about it from both points of view. So what we can do instead is start to leave assets to a trust framework on the first person's death. Those assets are still available for the survivor. It doesn't stop them spending it. It doesn't stop them selling the house if it's a share of the house. But what it does mean is that when it comes down to the children, and once they finish with it, they leave the rest of their assets to the trust framework too. As and when it comes down to the children, they can take the money out of the trust as an interest-free loan rather than having the money in their estate, which ultimately means if they want to leave it to their children, they can do so very easily and free of tax. So what it does is it saves inheritance tax here, it saves inheritance tax here, and it saves a huge amount of inheritance tax here. It also protects the money, some of the money if the remaining spouse gets remarried and divorced or remarried and died. And it saves a lot of the money if the children were to get divorced, as well as care fees as well. So having a trust framework to really create a legacy is fantastic. But of course, creating a legacy isn't just about the money. And in my book, I talk also about other things that you can do for creating a legacy. So for example, by the way, this is these are my two daughters here. This is an old photo. So, not that one. That's an exercise I'm not going to have time to take you through, sadly. But this is me here, in case you haven't already worked that out. That's Carol, my wife. This is Bronwyn, and this is Fionn, and this is some of my sister and my parents. But the reason I show you this photo is one of the things we've done is we've created a legacy interview, video interview with my parents, and also one with Carol's parents as well, where we've asked them a load of questions that are in my book, The Dream Retirement. Because wouldn't it be amazing if we had a video of our grandparents or great-grandparents today that we could watch that was telling us about what life was like in their time? So I encourage you to get your parents, or if you're older, do your own video so that you can pass on a legacy that's more than just your money, but some of the things that you've learned during your lifetime. So I'm going to have to skip that exercise, I think, because I've spent longer than I thought. So yeah, just aim to leave a legacy worth sharing, not just the money. But by creating a financial legacy, it's amazing what you can do with it. You can help charities and causes that are important to you. You can set up charitable trusts to provide education for your future generations. You know, it really is magical what you can do with this money, and it impacts lots of people, not just you. Now I want to cover, so I'm going to click through that. So we've covered all of that. Oh, I just need to have a duplicate slide. So yeah, in summary, right, the expiration meeting is how we can help you. Next, if you want one of those, what we will do is we'll make sure you can understand how financial planning will help you. We'll make sure you can understand all about your current financial situation, and we'll help you see what's important to you in the future. As I say, Rutland or London, ignore those dates. Actually, they're wrong. They've obviously already been and gone. But we can organise expiration meetings with you on an individual basis. If you decide the expiration meeting isn't right for you now, or if you just want to learn more about what I've been talking to you about this evening, you can download my book for free at dream-retirement.com/book. So if you want to download my book for free, you are welcome to do that. If you want to buy it, you can also buy it on Amazon, or you can get in contact with me and I can post out a signed copy if you prefer. Why do we do all this? Well, at Efficient Portfolio, our motto is that we love helping you achieve what you love. It really is an amazing, rewarding experience helping you understand what's important to you in the future and helping you plan for it, and then hearing the stories of you actually achieving it. Now, if you're not based in the UK, we can only help you to a very limited extent, because so much of what we are doing is, and this is partly because of a legislative issue and partly because of a EU rules point of view. But in terms of, we don't understand the different tax wrappers that you're going to have available to you in your country, the different investment opportunities that you have as well, but also there are EU restrictions on how we can advise people that aren't based in the UK. So if you are based abroad, you've obviously sent me your countries, which is brilliant. I will try and find you a financial planner that will follow this approach. But if I can't, I can give you two key questions to ask them. The first is, do they do lifetime cash flow forecasting? So you really want to go to a firm that does lifetime cash flow forecasting. If they don't, you're going to be just sold products. If they're doing cash flow forecasting properly, you might want to ask for an example of what one looks like. Then you'll actually have somebody that's going to do a financial plan for you. I would then want to make sure that they've got a good, diversified investment approach. I'd want to see an example portfolio, and I'd want to see a nice spread of asset allocation that's stocks and shares, bonds, cash, property, maybe some commodities, UK, Europe, US, Far East, a really diversified portfolio. You've got to be looking out for that. If they're just going to chuck you into one fund, I would be very skeptical of it. And then the final thing, I think, is that you really, ideally, and this is what I'm going to look for you, if I can find you one, is you want a firm that does life planning, and ideally has been through the Kinder approach. You can find, actually, that's a good point. You can find a lot of Kinder authorized advisors on the Kinder website. I think it's the Kinder Institute. Thank you, Satinder, for your time. I hope you found it valuable. So anyway, that's the three ways I would do it. I'm going to use the Kinder Institute to try and help you find somebody, but that's the three measures that I would look for abroad. Realistically, only through seminars and webinars can we help you if you're abroad. We can't actually implement any of the advice, which is really where the magic happens. But if you've got any questions, feel free to pick up the phone or call us. I tend to spend most of my working day in meetings, but you can email us at inquiry@efficientportfolio.co.uk, or you can email me at charlie@efficientportfolio.co.uk. Our office telephone number is 01572 898060. If you would like an exploration meeting with one of our advisors, I'd be really delighted to do that. As I say, it'll be free of charge. There's no obligation on your part. If you want to take our advice to the next level and you want us to build a financial plan for you, that financial plan is covered by 100% money back guarantee. So even if you get our plan with all of our advice in it and you think, what on earth is this idiot on about, then no questions asked, you can have your money back. We've offered that guarantee for 10 years now. I think we do about 4 plans a month, and I think over 10 years we've given a refund to 4 or 5 people, because that's all the people that have asked for it, because people get a lot of value out of our financial plans. I've got about 5 minutes before I've got to dash, in case anybody's got any other specific questions. Other than that, I'd really love to welcome you to an exploration meeting with one of my advisors. We really are passionate about what we do at Efficient Portfolio, so I hope this has been really useful, and I hope you've picked up some pearls of wisdom. If you've got any questions, brilliant. If not, carry on doing. By the way, one other thing I should mention to you guys: if you go to dream-retirement.com, forget the book bit at the end, there's loads of tips on there as to how, and in my book actually, as to how I've adapted and created my life based on what I learned from UPW 5 years ago. So 5 years of experience from UPW. I applied Tony's diet approach to eating to about 90% of my life. Pretty much a bit less than 90%. 5 days on, 2 days off. But 2 days off are actually probably only a day and a half off anyway. So I've lived by that approach for 5 years. It works brilliantly for me. I'm about 3 stone lighter than I was before. What advice would you give to a recently single mum of 2 whose partner has cleaned out all accounts? Firstly, Nuria, I'm very sorry to hear that. That sounds hideous. I would say that the best thing I can give, the best advice I could give you is to start saving. The principle is more important than the amount. You will feel so much better knowing that you've got some money starting to be put aside. Set up that money management system. That will give you good accountability of the money that's coming in. Make sure some of it is going into a long-term account, some of it's going to a medium account. If you're really struggling for where you can save, read The Automatic Millionaire. Just save, save money by not buying a Starbucks latte once a day or once a week or whatever it is. Find a few pounds that you can put aside. The psychology of saving will make you feel so much better about your money, and it will just be the first stepping stone onto you becoming financially free, I promise. Any other questions? Guys, you freaking rock. Thank you very much for dialing in. I love spending time with people that have a similar mindset to me, and anybody that goes to UPW is an awesome person in my eyes. So congratulations for taking your life by the scruff of its neck. Somebody, Emma, oh no, not Emma. Christine, no, hang on, I can't keep up with the, Nuria, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. Great book at the moment. Yeah, brilliant. Well done. Emma, you're welcome. Thank you for the message. Christina, right, so Christina, you need to take some action. I can't remember whether, Christina, you were abroad. I think you were abroad. If you're not abroad, you need to get in contact with us. If you are abroad, then I'm going to come back to you on one of those 4 questions for countries, and I will find you an advisor that will work for you. So you're in Lithuania. Sadly, I can't really help you in Lithuania because of the tax problems. Yuri, you're welcome. I'm delighted that you got value out of it. Jennifer, delighted you did too. Helen, typically a financial plan costs between £500 and £3,000. It depends on how complicated it is. But yeah, anywhere between £500 and £3,000, and that's the fee that's covered by the 100% money back guarantee. PM. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Look, I'll find that message tomorrow probably. Thank you, Nuria, for the offer of advice. I think we did send a message, or we tried to send a message back saying we're just reviewing our website with a firm at the moment. So once we've got through that process, that might be really helpful. But at this moment in time, let's pause on that. But it's a very kind offer. Thank you very much for that. Poonam, oh, that's the private message. Great. Aisha, thank you. Helen, thank you. Nuria, great. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. And I'll hopefully meet you all or speak to you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.